Okay. It looks like our stream is starting up on YouTube now. How are we on Twitch? Still going through the ads. Okay. Okay, looks like we're finally up on YouTube. Okay. I'm sorry for kicking everybody out. We're gonna keep on going. So here we go. The goal for the Swappy library for today is for us to build something that maybe has a little bit of like this responsive like coolness, where if we put something over in the bottom left corner, it is larger and takes up like 2/3 of the space. Um, and then if it goes into the other corner, then it becomes smaller and scales appropriately. Right now, the very basic demo that I have, it doesn't have any sort of that responsiveness because everything just sits in a column. And I think one way that we can kind of play around with this is, let me just open up a whiteboard for this. Here's the vision. So if we're building out our site, right? Um, we have a list of our experiences here, here, and here. Um, I think it would be fun if we could kind of reorder these things, just to kind of add a little bit of interactivity. Now, thematically, let's think about some reasons why we might want to do this. The main reason why I wanted to do this personally was because I wanted to remake one of those old, like, um, 80s retro TV plus VCR. Because I'm a big fan of Star Wars, and actually, I guess Star Wars was more of the 70s, so let me look up 70s. um, I'm a big fan of Star Wars, and Star Wars has a lot of like throwbacks to the old days. And so I want to make it so that like all of the experiences that I have for my portfolio are like little VCR tapes that I can then slot into the TV like input, and then the TV will become the content for my, I guess, my portfolio site. So since that's the goal, we're gonna see how we can kind of fumble around and make that happen. So I'm gonna actually just grab. I mean, this is a pretty classic style. No, this one's a lot cleaner. Classic CRTV. So if this is our goal, and let's actually make this smaller. Let's make the TV screen here. And then we have a nice stack of VCRs over here. Maybe we can have our VCR player here. The TV, the experiences. Bam, bam, bam. Okay. And so here's the plan. We take the experiences, and then we slot it into the VCR somewhere over here. And then when we do that, our experience will show up on the TV. That is the goal. And so we're going to try to do that using this framework. Now, if you want the links to all of this, it's going to be over in this website, which I forgot to actually post in the Discord announcement. Let me actually edit my announcement to make sure it's in there. Okay. Don't mind the broken CSS. I will fix that after the stream. This is what I get for not double checking the publish link versus the actual um, code link. Okay, so if this is the goal, we've got our sandbox here. This is what we have right now, which we can also, I guess, like keep track of how many times this thing's moved. There we go, and we can lock things just like that. Okay, so I'm gonna do a quick tour of what's going on in this repo. So, oh, that's so sad. I actually committed the node modules. That should not be included in there. Okay, there we go. It's actually grayed out. It just doesn't look grayed out. I've got to actually also add in the source control. Make sure we can actually see what's going on there. Okay, I think I've still got a few extensions trying to kick in right now. Let's just reload this window. Because I've got a visual pack over here. And I noticed it didn't load in. Not that I like really need it, but it's like a canary, kind of a sign that not everything's loaded yet. Yeah, where's all of my pack? I really don't need this. Let me do a little bit of extension management before we get started, or before we get too into this. Where's my... It is... Okay, I didn't realize like how much it would bother me not having the extension things, and then like, I guess like the font. Let's see what this deal is. Okay, that's loaded, yes. But where is my syntactic sugar? I don't know about you, chat, but like, it is really hard to read HTML when there's no colors in here, and it's all like one thing. I don't even know what this extension is. Do, 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 do. Do not need... Really? I still don't get any... Why is this not loading? I'm gonna guess it's because my ad blockers might be doing a funny. Okay. Yeah, I think it was the ad blocker, because now I've got my icons. Okay, now that we can actually see what's going on, let's take a look at what's going on inside our HTML. So we can just ignore the head for now. And let's just go into, I guess, okay, down here, we can see that, where's my live sandbox? Okay, let me actually run this sandbox locally. We're gonna run this using live server. If you don't know what the live server extension does, it basically allows you inside whatever repo you have, if you're running it locally, to push it up to your browser in over a open port, and um, basically it allows you to preview your web pages like live, and because I guess one of the ways that if you aren't using something like React or some other like framework that allows you to put your websites to your browser to actually run it, the live server is really helpful to help you do that. Um, if that doesn't make sense, basically, if I just have all this HTML right here and I try to open it in my browser, it would open, but it wouldn't like push updates to itself. So if we run it through a server instead, then it will push updates to our browser, and it'll actually be like live. So that's what Live Server does. And to make things easy, I'm going to pop this server into the simple browser, which is in VS Code. So that allows me to do this nice side by side without having to worry about the rest of my screen. Okay, so I did a very fast, like, kind of flyby on what was going on page. Um, the main thing that we needed to take away was that we've got three different layers for each, I guess, like container that is kind of grabbable. And in this, I guess, in this repo, we only have a few dependencies or like libraries that we're playing around with. We've got four in total. So Swappy is the library that allows us, that we're kind of trying to focus on, that allows us to, hello? No. Why isn't that working? Well, this is going to make things really difficult to demonstrate if this stuff doesn't work, even in the editor. I'm trying to remember how I built this repo. I could have sworn I did it in code spaces. Somebody's throwing hands with me, and I'm not really sure what level this is breaking at. I've seen this issue before. This issue is because we're referring to a TypeScript file instead of a JavaScript file, which shouldn't be a problem because one of the libraries that I have is supposed to. Ah, that's why. I didn't build it, and so it still says it's building that. Okay. So I need to remember how to do this. And I didn't put it in the README. Sorry, chat. This is going to be very much of a watch me lose my mind kind of stream, I guess. Okay, here we go. Let's do a nice. NPM's already installed here. NPM run build. Let's just go ahead and run this build. So I didn't actually finish talking about what libraries we're rolling with today. Swappy is, of course, the dragging thing, which isn't working right now because right now the index file is pointing to a TypeScript file instead of a JavaScript file. And if you don't know, TypeScript is JavaScript, but it adds types to it. Uh, so this allows us to reduce the amount of problems that we have. I'm still learning TypeScript myself, so I'm probably going to make a lot of very noobish mistakes like this. But the way to actually get it working, um, when you actually, I guess, like build your website, is to make sure that this thing eventually points to a JavaScript file. So while I could just turn this straight up into a JavaScript file, since I'm not actually using any types yet, actually I am using a few types. I'm using like element and number. Um, what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to use Vite, which is another tool that I'm using that's right here. And this basically allows us to take like TypeScript files and transpile it from TypeScript to JavaScript, which makes it usable for a browser. And then the next thing that I'll need to do after I do that is I actually need to, actually, I don't even need to run this in live server. I shouldn't be running this in live server. Live server, let's close this. Yeah, that should be done. Okay, we don't actually want live server because we're using Vite, which allows us to put up a server. And so if we actually do run dev, this will open up. We're going to open up this port right over here. Ah, there we go. Okay, we actually have like working JavaScript now. So that's like the reason why we're building with Vite. It's very useful for setting up a lot of boilerplate too whenever you're getting into web development. So I guess the other library that we're using is TypeScript. We're maxed out on CPU. That's fine. There's nothing crazy going on. Let's see. Yeah, that's TypeScript. And then GitHub Pages is just to deploy this to GitHub Pages. We can't use the normal way of just deploying it to GitHub Pages, which is to, I guess, let me go into the GHW one. Do I have the repo here even? I don't. Okay, give me a moment. GitHub. GHW. Okay, so this is the way that we would normally deploy it. We'd go over to settings, we'd go over to pages, and then we would make sure to deploy from a branch. And then we would just select either the main branch or whatever other branch that you want to be building your deployed website to, and then it would just run. Now, this mostly works for a lot of static websites and anything that uses like JavaScript. But if you have anything a bit more complicated that uses anything with like TypeScript or requires like a build process for web development, then this is no longer going to be adequate for you. And you're going to need to run it using something else. And while the result of this website is going to be a static website, actually, wait. Yeah, because this is a static website, right? Like everybody who loads into this page is going to see the same thing and is going to interact in the same way. Otherwise, it'd be a different kind of website. And because it's a static website and everybody sees the same thing, it's easier to deploy. But because this one uses TypeScript, we need to use a slightly different process in order to deploy it to GitHub Pages. That's why I'm using this GitHub Pages dependency. Okay, I think that is enough of a why did I choose these tools kind of situation. Um, I think it's really useful whenever you're building your own, I guess, like template repos or sandbox repos to use Vite to, I guess, like build and set up your project. Um, and then use GitHub Pages to deploy it, especially if you're using TypeScript. TypeScript is not necessary, But I think a lot of people are starting to look for TypeScript devs or like transitioning to TypeScript in the work environment just because like type safety is really important and it helps catch a lot of errors in production well before it actually happens. If you want to learn more about Vite, um, Vite.dev. Yeah, just look them up. They're really useful for, I guess, like building things from scratch, which I will actually do with a different library, probably. We have plenty of libraries to be diving through today. Um, Actually, you know what? Let me know in chat if you want to continue working on this library, or if you want to check out some of the other ones. I'm gonna quickly just demo or show you all the website. Where is I keep losing my links. Don't mind me losing my mind. And it's still broken. Why is it broken? Oh, it's just because it doesn't have the, that's my browser setting. Okay, going back into here, hash my broken slide deck. We have Reveal, React Flow, Swappy, Mercury, and P5. So these are the libraries that I think would be fun to mess around with on the portfolio site. So Reveal.js is a presentation framework in HTML. And so you can make slide decks just like that. So I think this is really useful if you want to present information at the pace of the user. So this is especially useful for anybody who, especially for people who like do like any sort of like teaching work. This is actually what the framework that I use to build my slide deck in. Um, with this bit, allows us to go in all four directions, which is pretty cool. 10 out of 10 slide deck framework. Um, you just have to put in obviously a lot more work into actually learning HTML and CSS in order to make this thing actually like work. But yeah, there's a lot of like nice like animations and such like this. Like look at how slick that is. This is another really cool library that I've been wanting to play around with more. Basically, it's used for building node-based editors mostly and interactive diagrams. I think this could be cool as like some like interactive part of your portfolio site. Like look at how clean that is. Now of course this example is pretty well authored and it's mixing in like another like 3D library, probably like 3JS in order to actually make this demo work. But I mean like the rest of this is also pretty sick. So the way I imagine this one to be used is instead of doing this like TV thing, um, we might do something more like this, where we present our experiences kind of in an order. Whoop. And so anytime you've like started a new experience, you can do something like this, this, make it all varied and such. And then we could have like a time scale that goes this way. And then we can have some lines that connect this way, this way. And then we can figure out what else happens on the, I guess, like the x-axis for this. Because the y-axis, it makes more sense to just make this a time thing. So that might be like one fun way to kind of build out a portfolio site, and React Flow would be the best library for this. Or if you want to like do any sort of other kind of words, words. If you want to, what am I trying to say? I blabbed too hard and I lost track of what it is I'm trying to say. Oh, if you wanted to have any other like interactive bits of your portfolio, especially something that has to do with graphs, this might be a fun way to do it. Uh, I think a really cool example of this was actually not as a portfolio thing, but under there's this really cool website that's called roadmap.sh. Pasting that in chat, where basically it is a open source repo that gives you a order of things to pick up or learn based off of the stack that you want to learn or apply for. So we've got like a very like generic like computer science thing. So this is all of the things that the community thinks would be good for you to learn. And the more important thing is that it shows you the order that you should learn. So if you want to do more like front end these things, we've got a nice like structured order of things, ways to like pick up all of this stuff. Um, and I think that the coolest part about roadmaps is that all of this stuff right here, this stuff is built using roadmaps. Or sorry, this stuff is built using React Flow, if I remember this correctly. Let's actually walk the talk and pop into the developer roadmap thing and see, peek into package.json. And we should see, say flow. Okay, maybe that was a bad thing to search for. Let's just scroll through this. React Flow, there it is. There's the library. So that is this library right here. So yeah, it's pretty extensible. Of course you can code whatever it is that you want. This one's actually got a lot of really good references and examples compared to the other library that I was showing. This one actually has a really cool. If we pop over to here, we go over to, where is it? The thing I'm looking for is they made a slide deck using this, and it was very like Prezi style. If you don't know what Prezi is, basically they were like a Google Slides competitor. Yeah, it looks a little bit like FigJam, and it comes like pre-styled like that too, which is really nice. What was I saying? Oh yeah, it's kind of like Prezi. Actually, let's look up Prezi. Um, do. Their main selling point was that it kind of arranged everything in a space and it kind of zoomed in and out using like some, I wouldn't say motion animation, but it did a lot of like zooming in and out in order to, I guess, like progress through things. So its emphasis was on, I guess, like the spatial organization of the content topics. And I think you can build something very similar to this using roadmaps. Da, 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 da. And I'm trying to find it. I found it the other day when I was, maybe it's under Learn. Mind Map slideshow app. Ah, here it goes. So there's a whole tutorial on this, on how to build this specific interactive like slide deck. So like we click here, we click there, it jumps all around. And so this is pretty darn cool. Uh, I think there is definitely a world where somebody can build like, I guess it would be a really unique portfolio if you were to build something um like in this style. Because then it makes like your website very like presentation styly. And I think that adds like a lot of character, or not necessarily character, but it adds a lot of like wow factor. It adds a lot of like coolness to your portfolio site. And I think that makes you a lot more likely to kind of stick out, especially if you're trying to get people to, if you're trying to stand out against other people. You don't even have to make your entire website out of something like this. Even if you just did this for just like one bit, it would probably still be worthwhile to just play with. It's also fun to play with, just in general. So yeah, this team, they made their entire, what is it? What was the tutorial on? Is yeah, they made a end of year survey presentation with this. Now, of course, this is the tool that they're selling, so it makes sense that they would use their own tool. I just think it's really neat. I don't think you actually need to even pay for it. I believe it is completely open source and free. You don't even have to like, let's see, how and why we keep it free. Yeah, it is completely free. You can't even, oh, you can pay for it if you wanted more, I guess, like learning materials for it, which is still really neat. Um, okay, Mercury is a framework that I kind of wanted to highlight for all of the Python folks or the data science, like machine learning folks as well. Basically, it allows you to turn Python notebooks into web apps. So this is a quite a decent alternative to using something like Streamlit. So Streamlit is used for, I guess, like it's used a lot in hackathons for putting machine learning projects and data science and data viz projects onto the internet as a web app. And so it's a very common like hackathon submission like library. And it comes like really pre-styled, super nice, which is really neat. Um, but if you are somebody who prefers to work in Jupyter notebooks, especially since like it allows you to do a lot of, I guess, put your documentation in line with all of your code, then it might be worthwhile checking out something like Mercury. Now, it looks like this is a paid tool. Let's actually see what this service is. Max size, 5 meg. There's easy ways to get around this. The main thing is to just make sure that you are just know that you're only capped at one site. But it seems like this is an open source project. So there's probably even ways for you to just like self-host this, and then you don't have to worry about paying for it. But yeah, there are a lot of really cool tools out there. Okay, P5. I'm actually going to be running some more workshops on this. I believe tomorrow or the day after. And this is basically an animation library, um, and it allows you to, well, just build anything that you want, animation wise, and it's very easy to embed. I'm going to be showing you how to actually make this as part of your website without having to actually, I guess, like embed it. So this was a art project that this feller did. It looks like it was ported from processing, and it was originally written or ported from processing to the web. Um, Processing, just to, I guess, like clear things up, is the foundation, or processing is a language. It is the, let me just look it up. Processing Foundation is the organization which runs the processing libraries, and there are three different libraries that they run. I mostly use P5 because it's super portable and you can run it like in the browser. That's the biggest thing. You don't have to download anything. But it also runs technically like locally through Java. And it also runs on Android. I've never worked with Android. It actually also runs on Python, I believe. Da, da, da. Do they still run the Python project? Yeah, they do. Whew. Okay, So yeah, I'm gonna be playing around with this for another workshop. So not gonna be covering this here. On another layout, another note, I actually really like this. I guess if you were here in my previous stream, we talked a lot about like design styles of websites. This one is a very much a neo-brutalist art style, and it's very subtle about it. I really like the way that this thing, like, it's just so clean. I love how clean it is. Simple, and it's got like this permanent like sticky tab on the left. Ah, okay. Anyway, enough gushing about that. Let's actually remove a few of these things. I'm going to continue working on the Swappy library for now. Let me know in chat if you're interested in learning more about any of the other ones, and then we can pivot over to that. I'm probably going to move over to reveals what library after those words, because I guess this is the thing that I use for the workshop links. And I need to fix this anyway because I pushed some code that kind of broke my. Let's just close that for now. My slide deck is a little busted right now. Like it's looking like this instead of what it should look like, which is more like. I don't know what's going on with this. I'm losing my mind. Okay. Either way, the point is that it should work just like this, as clean as this. So we'll figure that out together. And then we can play a little bit with React Flow if we have more time. So that is the plan for today. But first off, talk about how this works. And then we'll talk about implementing a little bit something a little bit closer to what we have over here. And then once we get like a minimum viable thing working, then we'll transition over to Reveal.js. Speaking of minimum viable things, I think it would be useful to actually start making a list of things before we say that we're satisfied with how we've learned this library. So the main thing is, I guess, the original sandbox. We've got a counter, and we've got, I guess, like, yeah, it just works, right? Um, so we want to one, we want to make sure that we can reorder the experiences. Actually, let's put this underneath it so that when we scale it for the React Flow example, and then the reveal example, it's a little bit easier to just scroll left and right. Okay, so we can reorder the experiences. We can slot in an experience to a VCR, and then we can change the contents of the TV based on the experience that is plugged in. It's plugged in. Okay. To be honest, I think it's going to be a lot easier if instead of having a separate VCR unit like that, it's probably easiest for us to slot it like this. Actually, no. The easiest way to implement this is instead of having a dedicated VCR unit underneath the TV, is to actually make it so that a specific position in this list is going to be considered the thing for the TV. I think that's probably in scope for what it is that we're going to be doing today. Because otherwise, I guess the way that Swappy as a framework works is you have like a specific container. Okay, let me whiteboard this out. if we have a container like this, and we try to take something outside of this container, it gets really screwy. Because if we notice in our demo here, I can actually close this one and that, and we'll keep that up. Let's dive into this a little bit more. I'm gonna close the lorem ipsum bits. That way it's just easier for us to whoop, focus on the important things in here. We don't need to see the footer. Okay. So inside this article class, the only thing that we have going on is just like a little bit of text. And then we gave it a class of background red. This is just like a basic like CSS class thing that I imported um, as a min file. If you want to see what the CSS thing is, it's just Pico's CSS. What does the TV signify? Ah, okay. So no worries. Thanks for asking questions. This is going to be a portfolio site, and this is the current layout. And so the idea is we're trying to be unique in the sense that we do something where instead of like, I guess, like seeing everything laid out in front of you, you have to interact with it a little bit to see what to learn more about your experience. So I guess it's not necessarily like experiences, it could be projects as well. And I'm just going to shorten that to XP. Uh, does that make sense? East of the East? So let me actually clarify that. Okay, cool. The other thing is that this TV thing is it doesn't even necessarily have to be about like it being part of a portfolio. This is just like it's a fun way to talk about like how to incorporate like cool interactivity or like animation libraries. And we're just going to kind of like roll through with that um, and learn and build together. That's the goal of this stream at least. Okay, where was I? I think I was still going through breaking down how this file works. Okay. Let's see. So yeah, we use a basic style thing inside our articles. And in here, we see that we have two layers of swappy components. So we've got slots, items, and then up here, we should have, okay. We've got a checkbox over here. This is for us to enable the input. And by input, this is referring to disabling or enabling dragging. So if the checkbox is on, then we can actually drag things around. If it is off, then we can't drag anything around. That is that. Okay, and then we've got one more layer, which is the container layer. I don't actually remember why each of these sections need to be in their own thing. Um, see if they say anything about why these things need to be nested twice, and then we can just try like messing around and just like see if we can, you know, um, not have that second layer. I don't know that this thing actually has a library, because if we were to look through this, it just gives you a very quick crash course. Actually, wait, let's see. We're showing a simple layout. To specify a slot, we give it a slot and then a unique name, and it can only contain a single item. To mark an element as an item, you give it a different attribute. By default, items are draggable from any spot. You can specify a handle. by adding a handle like that. You can customize the slot you are currently selecting by styling the highlighted class. Okay, so that actually answers um, my question about why it was nested twice. Uh, well, I guess it doesn't really answer it, but it just says that we have to do it. So I'm guessing that's like part of what this person implemented in their actual library. Let's see if they have anything else for as far as wikis go. They don't actually, but they do have a few other examples that we can play around with. Um, which we're not going to dive into here until we actually run into some more issues with our example thing. So first thing I'm going to do is I should have just made a new branch. We're going to make a new branch. We're going to call this GHW TV. Okay, so now that we're in a separate branch for this, I like to make sure that like my main branch always has something that kind of like works based off of the tutorial. That way, whenever I look back at the tutorial, I can just look at my example instead and just like short circuit having to read it. Also, wow, sorry, I didn't see these comments. Okay, saw a video of a guy who used a really fancy JS library to make a portfolio site in the form of a 3D game. Yeah, the second div is probably for handling logic. Okay, I think I know who you're talking about. If you're talking about the 3D game guy, his name is the one I'm thinking of is Bruno Simon. This guy just has like one of my favorite portfolio sites of all time. And I found out he has a YouTube channel where he's currently doing a devlog on the process for making his new portfolio site. Uh so for anybody in chat who hasn't seen this yet, this guy this guy did an awesome portfolio site. Um so it's got an interactable car and the environment is completely based around. It's got some real physics in here, so if we were to actually go over to something that's movable, yeah, yeah, this is one of the coolest portfolio sites in the history of portfolio sites. I I think the first time I opened this thing, I saved it and then I came back to this to just continue playing around with it for another like 20 something minutes. Um, Now this library itself is it takes quite a bit to get into. And I guess this person's already actually got a a course on this. Um, I've tried learning this from scratch, and it is a lot of work to try to pick up. If I had actually figured out how to do it, I would have actually done a stream on this instead of just like other random libraries because of how cool this thing is. Well, I guess we could have just gone through. I could have just gone through this before a stream, and then we just do this together. But yeah, huge shout out to this guy for making a very cool thing. If anybody else wants to play with this on their own time, oh, it's so satisfying. This is so cool. There's another really cool one that I saw a while back. That had like a they just had like a orbit, around where's the thing? Like their entire portfolio was on this like noodle stand that was just like a 3D thing that they could just it was like a room that they could just like orbit around and it would just like have all of their information on it. But he was trying to sell the library off as something easy. Yeah. Yeah, it is a very it takes a lot of work to pick up. The library is it's so cool. For a while, even GitHub was using a like 3JS for their main site. Right now, I'm actually logged into GitHub. Um, GitHub 3D. Let's see if they actually have the thing. Ah, here we go. So their old like splash screen when you used to log in. Um, it basically had this Copilot, not Copilot. It had Mona, astronaut Mona, which is the um mascot of GitHub. Uh, the mascot would actually follow your mouse on the screen as you just kind of like navigated around, which is so cool. And this globe in the background was also animated itself. I don't know if it was actually made in 3JS. I also assumed it was made in 3JS. That's really funny. Copy of a copy of a copy. Yeah. Anyway, there's other lighter ways for us to make our own portfolios really cool and unique. All right. Um, I don't remember where I was, but I do know that we need to talk about what the actual code, like what the actual logic is behind this. So there's not too much going on over here. Let's break it down one step at a time, though. Uh, I'm just using. I'm really inconsistent about doing this. But something that a senior member of my team at an internship that I was in, um, the way that he used to navigate like new code bases was by not code bases, but like new code files was by collapsing all of the functions, anything that was collapsible, and then he would just like go through one at a time to unveil it, um, which I think is like super neat. I think it helps like helps us focus a lot. Hang on, comment in chat. Well, through the history code, someone's code is always somebody else's code. Yes. There's an old friend that I knew a long time back. I actually met him playing Clash Royale, which is really goofy. And basically he said there has never been a unique line of code ever because all you're doing is just like you're just copying other people's code to make your thing work. And I guess like depending on the level of abstraction that we're talking about, um, that's pretty much true. Like everything is going to reduce down to like the library itself eventually. Um, that said, there's still awesome ways to combine things and innovate and into making things into new products. It's just like I shouldn't get caught up trying to talk about this kind of philosophy thing. I'm not ready prepared for that kind of conversation right now. Okay, let's get back to this. So first thing is we import a library. Cool. Then we grab a container. So if we actually go in here, this thing's missing a semicolon. Boop, boop. Okay, so if we actually go back to the HTML file, we'll see that this class right here is the swap container. So nothing crazy going on there. We just toss it into that. Ba, 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 ba. Okay. The next thing is that we took the container that we grabbed and then we added it to as a parameter for this function, create swappy, which returns something and tosses it into this variable. And so it creates a new object where there's an animation option. That seems like it's the only parameter that we can put in right now. So I guess if we wanted to try something different, we could try this. Let's just see how that looks. Wait, is it a lot crispier? Let's see what it was like without the animation. Yeah. Yeah, because that's just instant. And then we have the spring animation, which is pretty satisfying to watch. So I guess spring affects everything. Dynamic only affects the one that you're shifting over, I think. Except for whatever this weird glitch is right there. Yeah, so dynamic only affects the one that you're actively looking at, and then spring affects the whole, like all of them. I'm gonna leave it back at none because I think actually no, let's leave it on dynamic for now. Okay. So next thing going on is now that we actually have the thing, the swappy element, that's stored over here. I guess this is like the global class of like all of the draggable items. You like dynamic the most. Okay, awesome. Sorry, I should have checked chat to see if what y'all were thinking. Thank you for voicing your opinion. Okay. The next thing is we have a map. So the reason why we have this map is so that we can actually keep track of the number of times that each of these things were grabbed. Whoop. So this was only grabbed 2 times, or was at the top 2 times. Um, okay, so let's see. This is the chunky function. Let's actually come back to that after we find where this thing is called. So we have on swap, which is I guess it's a custom JavaScript function. What like events. So whenever these things are swapped, we send a signal to say, "Hey, we've been swapped." This I found out is a TypeScript flavor thing, um, and so I actually forgot what it means. I'm gonna ask Copilot what this means. Can you explain what does the question mark mean? Ah, right. Okay. So it's useful for is null or undefined. Um, so I don't need to have a separate like case or like exit condition for this if I just use the question mark right here. Because otherwise the rest of this function would break if this first child doesn't exist. And so we're just grabbing the first child of whatever the container is, which is going to be this red one right here, at least if it's in this order. Okay, so if it's the first child, then we're just going to swap the paragraph with add swap paragraph. Ah, okay. So this is where we actually do the function call right here. So let's see. We take this, we toss in an element. Inside this element, we grab the article, which is the innermost child of our container right there. And then what do we do with that? Well, if it doesn't exist, then we just return. Well, I guess we could have just converted this to wherever the next time it uses article, we could have just put a question mark right here. Um, but by doing this way, we actually make sure that we don't even add it to the set at all. So I'm not going to refactor that just yet. I think this is a bit easier to read. Actually, this is it's this is also really easy to read, especially if you've read TypeScript before. I haven't read TypeScript before. This is not a clean coding workshop lesson though, so we're not going to worry too much about that. This right here is just a it's what's called a actually wait. This isn't a ternary. This is just checking to see if the article has a number. Um, if it already has a number, then it's going to set the number to be that value, or it's just going to set it to 0 if it doesn't exist yet. That's why this thing starts off with nothing, but as soon as we change it around, it actually gets a number. And we just actually add the count plus 1, and then we set that value in here. Okay. Da, 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 da. And then this, I believe, is just adding in the actual like counting logic. So I guess if I was really clean coding, I would have abstracted this away into its own function. It's just called add paragraph or add counter, and then I'd probably rename this thing to something else. But that I think that's fine. Maybe we can just leave a comment here. We'll just say adds counter to the article element. And then over here, this actually is the counter logic. Nothing too crazy there. I know that some clean coding enthusiasts would be like, ah, all up in arms for any sort of comments. There's a topic for another day. Okay. Very last thing that we do here. Actually, no, not the very last thing. We just check to see if the thing is enabled. Um, We don't check to see. We stash the enable thing here, and then we just enable it if it is actually checked. So right now, this thing actually starts off, it should be locked, but it actually starts off as unchecked. So what we can do is, before we even do that, we can just do swappy dot disable enable input dot checked. Not disable. We can just do enable, and then enable input dot checked. Enabled. We should just set this to be false to start. And so, okay, yeah. So the initial state, it starts off as unchecked. Easy fix. Okay, so next thing for us to do is to actually set up the CSS for the TV, because we already have this thing. We should actually also reduce the article contents to be something smaller. Um, so let's go ahead and make this a lot smaller. Let's just change this to lorem. We'll change this to ipsum. And we'll change this one to Delore. Okay, so now we've got a bunch of short words. This is going to be subbed in with whatever the contents of our experience are. Okay, so we've got that going on. I think there's probably a bit too much padding between these if we want this to work, but that's not part of our MVP, so we're not going to worry about that right now. Let's instead just make a TV. So we're going to make another content thing up here. Actually, no, we want this above our dragging thing. Right now, this section right here is our container. Let's just give this an ID of drag button. Okay. That way we know that we can't mess with that. We're not going to worry about what's inside this container. And then we want this. Well, actually, wait, this isn't the drag button. This, because this is everything from H2. So this is everything right here. So I guess, I'm thinking too hard about this. We're just going to put this right in between these two sections. Section. We're just going to pop in. We're going to make this a TV. So let's forget the CSS for this. Right now I've got Copilot. So I'm just going to go ahead and ask them, can you make a... Actually, wait. I know I really want to have another article in here. Because the article, at least in the Pico CSS framework, is what gives us this nice, subtle kind of like background card thing. So we're going to go ahead, open this up. We're going to give it a class of Pico. Actually, no. Actually, I think there's just, there's a nice like default thing. So let's just pop in a paragraph tag in here. Actually, we don't even need that. Let's just put in a little lorem ipsum. Okay, so we've actually already got something in there. Okay, so right now our CSS is going to be constraining to anything that's inside the box. We want to make something that is more, I guess, like static, so that we can actually put some other content in there. So let's actually design that out a little bit. I'm gonna go over here under the experiences. Let's just start by making the actual experiences thing. Let's make this our experiences thing. The layout for this is, let's just have bullet points. That's just the easiest way to do this. Blah, blah, blah. And then maybe we can have a picture right up here. That'll be what shows up under the TV experiences. So we've got some content there. Let's actually wrap this in a paragraph tag. Maybe have an unordered list in here, unordered list, and then we have maybe like 3 things in here, a 3 bullet list. We can continue popping in some more lorums. Let's see. Okay, cool. So if you're curious as to what shortcut I just used, in order to make this thing right here, I'm using a thing that's called emmet abbreviations. So that's what this pop-up is. And so basically, if you use the abbreviation of the title of the HTML element that you're trying to work with, so in this case it was unordered list, you could put in a child element of that by doing right arrow, and then you can put in the element, and then you can multiply that by however you want. So that's what I did to produce that. And then after I produced the elements, I just did Control Alt, or you could do Command Alt if you're on Mac. And then I just did Shift, hit End on my home row key, not home row key. I just hit the End button to go to the very end of the line, and then I used Control Shift and arrow key to just kind of bounce around. The Shift modifier allows us to continue highlighting and selecting things. The Control modifier allows us to actually jump to the next word, or I guess like token. Okay, so that was the shortcuts I used right there. Let's actually also get in a nice, oh, I guess it would be useful to have a header in there. And then let's get in a image. What is our image going to be today? Any opinions in chat? What funny image we should have today? I feel like we should just have a picture of lettuce. Let's have like a lettuce farm in here. It's nice and picturesque sort of deal. Here we go. This feels very what's the word? Project E. Okay, we're gonna add in some alt text in here because we like being accessible. 2 farmers harvest some lettuce. Okay, cool. So now we've got like kind of a template thing going on here. It doesn't look super pretty. Which I'm not overly in love with. But you know what? I think that's enough to get the message across. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to change out the card number over here. Yeah, so it says card color. Cool, cool. And so based off of the order that the rest of these are in, we'll actually just change the contents of this thing to, oh, you know what? Even better. Let's change the backgrounds of the TV to the same color as the one that's at the top over here. So if this thing is red at the top, then we'll turn this thing red. Okay, so here's what we can do. We could just go ahead and add, let's see, if we were to refresh this, what's the one at the top? We'll just default this to be whatever the red color is. Class, Pico background red 600. I think that's a bit bright. We're gonna pop into Pico and take a peek at the colors. Where are the colors? Color, color, color. Customization, colors. Here we go. So we're currently at 600. Let's get something a little bit darker. Maybe like a 750. And then we'll just change the fonts to be a little bit. Maybe let's try 800. Okay. I'm having second thoughts on this picture just because of the terrible cropping. I'm gonna change this. Lettuce farm. Let's get a nice action picture from Georgia grown. I kind of just want to put this in another container. Let's just go ahead and put this image here into its own container. Div.container. So if you add a dot after your M abbreviation, you're basically going to be adding a class to whatever it is that you apply it to. So if we do this, let's also wrap the rest of these in its own container. Oh, that didn't actually do anything. Default breakpoints. The fixed width. Ba, ba, da, ba. We actually do apply that. Full width container. Okay. Whoa. Well, I don't know what that was. That was a little goofy though. Okay. So, got a little distracted there. Let's get back to it. next thing we want to do is we're going to want to keep track of where the greens are or what color the top thing is at. Um, so let's actually make another thing over here. Swap um, color map is equal to new map. Then we'll have a few strings there. Okay. Da, 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 da. So instead of actually calling the add swap paragraph, let's get rid of this. And we're going to make a new function. And let's call this function. We're going to call this change TV color. We're going to take elements, pop in here. Let's see. We're going to grab the article. Actually, pretty much just this bit, at least, is going to be the same. Okay, change TV color. Let's actually make sure that we actually grab this thing. We're going to do change TV color to whatever it is that this first child says that it's going to be. We're going to take in the elements over here. Da, 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 da. We're going to find out what color this thing is. So the way that we can do that based on the class, we're just going to read the class name. There we go. And then if there's no color, we just return. Sure. There it is. Because there should be a class name on whatever children that we have over here. Okay, the next thing is we actually have to change the TV color. So what we can do is we can take const TV elements query selector. So this is looking for a class. I actually want to make it look for the ID of TV because we're going to have one ID inside the TV. So let's go pop in here. We're going to change this class to, actually no, we're not changing the class. We're going to give it an ID. We're going to give the ID TV. Okay, now we have the TV. We can take the TV. Can you make the TV element change its class to the same class as the article? Let's actually not worry about splitting. Class name. Yep, this returns a string. So this should be fine. And then we just change this to be the same as this. Let's actually make sure that we actually do this in proper TypeScript style. TypeScript class to this. It should. Color should be a string. Holy moly. Wait, no, that's too much. Let's just add string type to color. Okay, yeah. Oh, I should have seen that. All we needed to do was a colon into the actual type. Okay, cool. Change the TV color. Cool. Cool. Okay. I think that's all we need. Change the TV color. Let's hide this because we're not doing this. Swap color map. We don't actually, I don't think we actually need this. Let's delete that. Let's comment this out since we're not using that. Let's also comment this out since we're not using that either. Enable input, first child, TV. Okay, so that didn't actually change anything. That's all right. Let's see what's going on here. I think the easiest way for us to check what's going on is if we actually went into the port and then we inspected the element. Zoom this out a bit. Okay. So we're actually not getting any errors, which is good and bad here. I was hoping we were going to get an error to kind of see what's going on, but currently nothing's going on. So let's just start spamming this with some console logs. Console.log. Changing TV color to color. So currently that's not actually working. Let's see why this isn't working. Query selector. Let's try printing out. Let's actually just try yanking that and pasting it into here. Please type allow pasting. Uncaught reference. Element is not defined. Oh. Oh, right. Change TV color. Dot query selector to TV. Oh, that's the reason why. We need to actually take this to the document level. So basically the problem was that change TV was looking in the wrong scope. It was looking for just inside the scope of the first child. We want to look in the scope of the entire document. So the first child being these individual units right here. It was looking inside this article for the first child, and it couldn't find a first child whose ID was TV because the TV is actually out here in the document scope, which is the entire HTML scope. So let's go ahead and try that now. Ah, there we go. Okay. Now it's not that tricky. It shouldn't be that tricky. Earlier we wanted to make this like a bit of a darker color because this text color on this background is the contrast isn't too good. So we want to make it a higher contrast by bumping up the number. Let's see, where's the Pico.css? We go back to the colors on here. Customization, colors. I believe we went for like a nice like 800 value. So all of these should also have an 800 value. So we're going to see if we can do that real quick. So instead of just like copy pasting the class name, let's just grab should be the first part of the class name. Cool. Let's actually make sure that that's actually reading right. It's not actually in the first part, it's in the third part because this whole thing's a background. So what we actually need to do is we need to delimit this. We need to split it by the hyphens. And instead of grabbing the very first one, we want to grab 1, 2, 3, or 0, 1, 2. We want to grab this one right here. And then instead of changing the whole thing, let's actually change this to, I'm going to use a template literal or template string, copy this, paste it over here, and then we'll paste in the color just like that. So if you haven't worked with template strings before, basically you do backtick, which is the code button, and then you wrap that around, and then anything in there is going to be considered a string, except for whatever it is that you have with the dollar curly brace right there. Hi, Sam. I want to wish you luck on your search for the internship and apprenticeship. Um, I think you're probably going to get a lot more luck if you went to, let's see. I don't know if we have a place for this in the MLH Discord, actually, for like self-promotions. What you can do is you can ask, there should be a suggestions ticket, I think, under the MLH Discord, and then you can ask for a promotion channel, and then you could look for work that way. I wish you luck in your hunt, though. Okay, going back to it. Let's just see if this works. Okay, cool. So our TV is slowly working underway. So that we draw information on the contents of this from like a database or like a JSON file instead. Um, yeah, happy to help, Sam. Let's see. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it for this bit over here. I'll probably clean this up later when I play with this sandbox a bit more in the future, so that we can actually include this add swap paragraph bit. For now, I'm gonna just commit this. This is already in a branch. Ba, 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 ba. Publish this branch. Yes, let's publish it. And then let's say we added MVP TV. Excuse me. Okay, let's not worry about a pull request. And so now if we were to actually go to our GitHub, that should be a thing. Okay, cool. So that's for that library. We still have reveal.js to check out and React Flow to check out. For React Flow, I don't think we're going to have time to jump into that. For the reveals.js, I can walk through the slide deck that I'm hosting the GHW slides on, which is this one right here. And then we'll do it that way. And then I'll add in the sandbox for React Flow and Swappy over in our day 2 deck, which I wonder if this is working now. It's still not working. So we're going to figure out how to fix this thing together right now. And then along the way, I'll show you how I'm using Reveal.js. So let's get to it. Okay. we can go ahead and close this sandbox for now. Ba, 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 ba. Close the current code space. That'll do its thing. Okay, now let's actually dive into what's going on over here. I'm gonna pop into this code space. Wait for everything to load in. Okay, cool. So there's a lot more things going on over here. I'm gonna do a quick tour of the package.json. As you can see, there's not a lot going on here. This is a very basic, like bare bones kind of website, and you don't need a lot going on to host something on GitHub pages. Um, Once again, I'm not really sure what's going on with the actions process because it seems like the thing is building okay. I'm just not sure why it's sending an invalid response right now. Because the only thing I've changed since the last time I did anything was I added the notes for today, and then I added a link to the thing for today. So we can investigate that together. But first off, because I actually didn't build this with Vite, we're going to need to run this with Live Server, which is the thing that we tried running at the very beginning. So if we run this with Live Server, I'm going to do my thing where I open this over to the side. Whoop. Okay, so this is what it should look like. Once again, I'm still trying to figure out why it's broken. Um, so day one slides are over here. Let's just take a look at what this thing should look like. We got the interest line. We've got the cool animations for going up and down. All these things. I will say that this CSS stuff I did not do myself. I actually yoinked the CSS from this really cool person over here. So this is Pam Fox. She's a super cool like developer advocate, and so I'm basing like my slide deck off of her website. Hers is a bit more bare bones at the very top, but all of her slides are accessible just like this. And so you can see I kind of just yoinked her CSS at least for the slide theme. Okay, so going back to this thing, the actual like CSS framework that I'm using the backend, not backend, on the front end, is Pico CSS again. That's why it should look pretty familiar. Okay, so let's actually dive into the code now. So we're looking at day 2. So over in the script side, we've got to add in, let's see, these top 3 come with the reveal.js, I guess, like stuff over here. So if we were to go through not the demo, we don't want to go through the demo. We want to go through the installation. We've got to yoink the reveal CSS. I guess this is the presentation theme. And then you also need to add in a script somewhere. That is for that. Wait, actually. Oh, no. So I've yoinked in a CSS reset. Okay, I know where all these CSS things are yoinked from. I yoinked these from Pam. A lot of these. A CSS reset basically just, gosh, there's a whole like article on this that y'all should read, but basically different browsers implement CSS a little bit differently. And so they have a lot of like default things where if you don't specifically set it up, then it's going to say, "Oh, hey, this is what I'm going to do right now." And so this reset CSS thing basically allows us to take all of the browser defaults and rewrite them to be just like a very basic like null case, so that we don't have to worry about browser defaults kicking in and kind of like messing with us. So that's what the reset is. And then the rest of these are just like themes. Okay, so other than that, not too much going on over there. Um, let's just take a look at all of the scripts that we're running. We're running a reveal.js script. So this is a libraries thing. This is the library that actually powers the whole thing. I've got some plugins here too. So we've got a highlight plugin. We've got a menu plugin. These are all just like reveal.js things. And then we've got a Markdown plugin so that I could have written in Markdown. I didn't end up writing in Markdown for this workshop. Okay, here we go. Da, 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 da. Just a nice reveal Markdown. I didn't write any of these things for these scripts. I just actually yoinked these from the example, which should be right here. Yep, I just did that. I didn't even use the Markdown, so once again, I don't actually need to have those scripts down there. Um, okay, now let's actually dive into the actual thing itself. For the actual slide content, um, let's see. It's kind of organized. There's a couple of different layers we need to start with. We need to start with the reveal and slides layer. And then after that, you just make sure that each page is its own section. And then if you want to nest sections, like, okay, over in day one, for example, we have the left and right sections, right? But then there's some slides where there are kind of like sub slides that like go down a little bit. So I use that kind of thematically to talk about like when we're diving deeper into a specific subject, that's when I start using these sub slides. And so the way you can do that in this library is by just nesting the sections. Let's see. So this should be under the intro section. See, because yeah, this only has one layer of a section. This one actually only has one layer of a section. So under the FYI, here's all of the nested sections. So yeah, there we go. We've got the type of workshop that today is going to be. Da, 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 da. First day is less coding. Today is the second day. Second day is more coding. More coding. More libraries, etc. It's a very free form, build with me sort of day. Okay, cool. And then we had that, which is the technical things. It was much less about that stuff and more of just how and when to build sandboxes. Okay, I'm gonna get too far into actually fixing up my slides if we keep doing this. Okay, so let's actually. I guess there's not actually a terrible lot of other things to talk about for the reveal.js um, stuff. I guess what we could try to do is we could try to do the reveal.js thing where at the very top of the home section, they have another, they have a slide deck at the very top, and you can just kind of like scroll down like that. No, actually, I think what would be more interesting, since we only have like 10 minutes left, is to actually design out what a portfolio site might look like if we were to use the reveal.js library. Ba, 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 ba. I'm gonna rename this to be the. This wasn't React Flow. This was Swappy. This one was React Flow. And then this one was reveal.js. Okay, cool. So we have the layout where we have our slide deck at the very top. Okay, and then we had a bunch of contents. Or I guess the nav bar over there, and then we had the content here. We'd have to figure out what kind of content would sit up here versus what kind of content would sit down here. So what we could do is we could check to see if there's a signal within Reveal's library to auto-populate the content that's up in the slide contents. Um, the other option is if we just made it so that like for our portfolio site, what if we just made the entire the whole thing just was a straight up slide deck? And then we, because like each individual page itself inside. Oh no, did my code space already die? Each one of these pages is like a fully like interactive like HTML like full website. So if we were to go into, for example, like here and just like add in like a button that just says hello, hello world, and then maybe it just like is there a way for us to, I forget how to do buttons that clicks to another thing. Let's just make this, yeah, let's just make this a button. Okay. There's nothing too hard about it. Da 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 da. Who am I? Okay, I'm under the wrong thing. I need to look at day 2. Yeah, we've got a fully functional button over here. Obviously I didn't do anything with that. We just add a little bit of CSS to it. We can make this its own like interactive thing. So if we really wanted to, we could probably just like embed um the Swappy projects into our Reveal.js project and make a very like interactive slide deck sort of deal. Um, the tricky part is that we'd also have to figure out how to, like, if we want to like audience interaction in a slide deck, we'd have to figure out like some sort of real-time database for that. Um, there is a tool that I found a while back that I thought might be really fun for that. I'm realizing that that is a bit out of scope for, I guess, Career Week, because not everybody is as enthusiastic as I am about making slides. um, okay, so let's talk about what else we can do. That was basically everything that I had for the plans for today. Yeah, I guess, is there anything else that y'all in chat like have questions about um for the next like 5 minutes? Well, at any rate, I hope that y'all enjoyed, I guess, like exploring some of these new libraries that add, I think, that spice up the interaction a lot in these. That spice up the oh my gosh, what am I trying to say? I hope y'all enjoyed trying out these new libraries with me. I think that this gives us a lot of opportunities to come up with like fun design interactions to make our portfolio really stand out. Because especially because okay, wait, I can cite something here. There's a what pyramid is it? Learning retention period. Okay, so as far as like psychology goes, like learning sciences goes, there's this really cool, let's see. Well, okay. There's a little bit of contention around the learning period, on like the actual retention rate and whether or not this is actually like accurate. But it's very useful to note that there is a scale of things that you remember better. And very generally, like you can think about the portfolio sites that you've checked out as well. The ones that probably wowed you are probably the ones where you actually interacted with the site itself, and you were able to, I guess, like mess around with it, like have a little bit of fun playing around on the website instead of just like seeing all of the information, like as is. And so if you could actually make it so that the users on your website like can interact with your experience in a way that is relevant to the experience that you actually want to highlight, I think that would make for a really unique sort of portfolio piece. So I guess there's my thesis as to, or I guess my the overall theme of what it is that we're talking about today. Okay. Uh, I don't have anything else to add to the rest of this workshop. So, and it seems like we've gotten pretty quiet in chat. I'm gonna call it a little bit early. Please don't hate me for it. It just seems like it's a sleepy time for a lot of us. So I'm gonna be signing off, and I look forward to seeing you all again very, very soon. All right. Cheers, and thanks for putting up with me. See you soon. Bye.